Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we are taking a look at Oz Perkins' Long Legs. Very excited to talk about Long Legs. People said it was the scariest film of the year, and now I hear people are coming out disappointed. And now it's not that big of a deal.
Crying, throwing
Dude,
up,
my God, in the aisles. We're gonna give you the rundown
carted
on Long
away in an
Legs.
ambulance, yes.
No spoilers here on Off Script. I'm excited to talk about it. Stick around for it. We're also going to take a look at Twister, the 1996 film starring Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. Twisters comes out next week. I'd never seen Twister. We were looking for something else, something to shake it up. We figured, why not? Why not take a look at 1996 Twister? I am very excited to talk about Twister. This movie rocks. Stick around for the review. We're also going to take a look at a quick mini review, the rare mini review at The Black Coat's Daughter, which Andy actually watched for the show. Shout out to him. He's going to be handling it. Another Oz Perkins feature. Andy, any tease for the front to tell people to stick around for it? What do you got?
So I was it was recommended on different forums that if you've seen Long Legs, you might want to revisit The Black Coat's Daughter, and I did, and I ended up actually watching it twice because like Long Legs, there's a lot of things going on that you probably catch on second view. Very effective, very creepy, lots going on, similar in theme and tone. So they're two kind of thematically related movies. Very interesting.
The rare double watch. I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk about some trailers, some things that are coming out this summer, maybe later in the holiday that you're going to keep an eye on. And before we get to all of it, we need to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Andy, I think the Russo brothers are going to direct the new Avengers movies. This just came out of the Hollywood Reporter minutes before we started recording. We threw it in the outline. We talked about it just briefly before we got here, so you're hearing it first. Probably, maybe here on Off Script Film Review from us, courtesy of Hollywood Reporter. The Russo brothers, right? They did the last Avengers movies. Surely it'll be a hit. What do you know about this?
So after courting several directors, including Sean Levy, who's doing Deadpool and Wolverine, and David Daniel Cruston, who did Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, it's back to the Russo brothers because they couldn't really find a director, and they have done more of these successful Marvel projects. They did all of the not all the Captain America movies, but the two that people like, and then the two Avengers films. I mean, you can't mess with success. These are slated to come out May 2026 and May 2027, so quite a ways off. We'll see if they stick to this calendar because we know that Marvel's had a really hard time sticking to their release dates and distribution. So we'll see if it actually happens because that's about 2 years away for the first movie. So we'll see.
Combined, the Russo brothers' Marvel films have grossed $6.681 billion total, with Endgame standing as the number 2 movie of all time globally with $2.79 billion. That is a big, big deal. Those are big numbers, which is exactly what Disney's looking for. Big ideas, big voices, big casts, big Avengers. Why not get the Russo brothers back? Since then, though, since doing those two Avengers films, the Russo brothers have split off into a lot more producing via their Agbo label, and they produced big things like Everything Everywhere All at Once. They did Assassination Nation way back when we covered that on the show. A couple of Amazon shows, Netflix's Extraction films, starring Chris Hemsworth that we've covered here. And notably, they have directed 2 films, the Tom Holland crime drama Cherry for Apple, came out in 2021, and The Gray Man over at Netflix, in 2022. That starred Ryan Gosling. We covered The Gray Man on this show. And what people may not remember, it's terrible. It's not a good movie. It's really kind of stunningly bad considering who's in it. And we were surprised. Andy and I covered it on the show. You can go back and listen to the review. We were surprised The Gray Man wasn't bad, but it didn't work. So with that in mind, knowing Cherry wasn't that big of a hit, knowing Gray Man was a big stumble, do we feel good about handing Avengers to these guys again? Maybe it should be going to somebody like Sean Levy or Sam Raimi. Andy, what do you think? What's your opinion?
I mean, it seems like this is the kind of movie that these guys do best. They have not been successful at all with their outside projects. Cherry was a bomb. The Gray Man was really bad, really boring. Also, I think part of this is just they want someone who will play ball with the studio. You don't get a lot of creative input on these projects. They just need a manager to get the train from point A to point B, just get the thing done, get it in the bag, distribute it. and that's what these guys will do. They've proven it time and time again. It's probably safest for both partners. Like they will absolutely succeed on an Avengers movie, and Marvel gets competent directors who will do what they say.
Yeah. If you, like me, are concerned that like maybe somebody like Raimi or Sean Levy may not be taking a swing at these, that they, some directors that like have some pretty bold voices in the auteur space, I think, at least in Raimi's case. You can rest easy with, I think, a closing thought from Pat Willems on Twitter, a film YouTuber. I'm a big fan of him. He said, actually, this is good news if you think about it, because if the Russo brothers are doing the Avengers movies, that means other more talented directors are freed up to do other projects, right? Like, that's what's really important. And hey, maybe they won't end up doing another Gray Man and tying up Ryan Gosling's schedule. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Keep it here on Off Script for more. Speaking of unsuccessful directors, Kevin Costner's Horizon 2 is not coming to theaters. Wah, wah, or at least for now, I should say, before we roll out like the clown slide whistle. Horizon just came out. It did not great. And it seems like New Line Cinema is deciding Horizon 2 needs to go on pause for now while it builds attention, right? Is that what they said, Andy?
Yes. So Horizon Part 2, which was supposed to be Part 2 of Kevin Costner's big Western epic. The Part 1 just came out about 3 weeks ago. Just 3 hours long. It's a big bomb. Part 2 is supposed to come out in August. And so because that first part didn't do so well, they're pulling Part 2 from theaters in hopes to kind of build some momentum of the first one. It actually just came out on VOD yesterday, so if you're interested in watching it at home, it's now available to rent, probably for a fat $20. I don't think this is gonna work, but it's noble of them to try something, because you don't want two movies flopping. This also gives them the option to like just sell this second movie to a streamer and have people watch it in like around Christmas or maybe next summer, something like that. We'll see if this goes anywhere. It's only earned like $15-16 million on a $100 million budget, so it's a certified bomb.
Yeah, big stumble for Costner and Costner fans. Dances with Wolves director was really looking forward to making this a big 4-part saga. Originally, it was going to be 3. They announced at Cannes that it was going to be 4 parts. People were talking about how it's going to build momentum, and they're going to do deals with streamers to put it out, and more people are going to get to go see it. And I did hear some really positive reviews, I think, from dedicated fans, that while it is large in scope and may not get to the meat of where these 4 parts are supposed to go in the first part that was out in theaters, that it was big and grand and epic, and like that's a good thing. We haven't covered it on the show. Maybe we'll get around to it. But one thing's for sure, it just does not seem like Horizon has cut the mustard with American audiences. They just haven't turned out. And tragically, being an American Western, overseas, those don't do that hot either. They usually just do fine. And if you got a big budget and big ideas, I think you need to bring something a little larger to the table to get people interested. They just didn't. I don't know. People didn't turn out, and I don't know if they turn out for part 2. Like I can't say. Who knows?
Costner, I think, really just played his hand here. He assumed that his big TV audience from Yellowstone would just be thrilled to go experience the same kind of entertainment in film form, and they absolutely were not. And I'm not surprised, because TV is comfortable. You watch it at home. You watch it on demand. This kind of movie, the demographic is older. It's that like 45 to 65 crowd and up. That's just the demographic that is targeted is not the demographic that gets up and goes to movies.
Yeah, I think Costner put a lot of confidence in his Yellowstone audience. And for what it's worth, he's known for his confidence. But getting out in front of everybody and saying, I'm going to make $400 million 3-hour features is not a move from a person who hasn't directed in a while. That's like a James Cameron level move. And even people even said Cameron wouldn't get away with it. And he still hasn't. He's only done Avatar 1 and 2, and they've both been good. He still has not made good on that promise. We got a ways to go. It's a big gamble, man. It's a big bet. I don't know where we go from here. But when we find out more, we'll report it right here on Off Scripts. Keep it here. Speaking of films that are up and coming, Minions 3 is happening. I don't think this surprises anybody. The release date announcement is coming hot on the heels of the opening of Despicable Me 4. We'll talk about the numbers of the box office in just a second here. But this movie's going to make $1 billion, right, Andy? I mean, it's a $1 billion feature. It got to be.
Minions 3 or Despicable Me 4? Which one?
That's a good question. Minions
I
3, I suppose,
don't.
is what I meant, but
Yeah, I don't think Despicable Me 4 will quite get there. It's almost at $500 million, and I think it will do well. Probably peter out around like the 700-800 million mark. It's going to be a huge success either way. But Minions 3, I mean, maybe, probably. This is 3 years off, which I'm a little surprised about that they couldn't get it out in 2 years, because surely they had this thing kind of ready or kind of in the bag, but I guess not. I mean, the Despicable Me, or the Minions slash Despicable Me universe, is like the most successful animated franchise now in history. It's over 5 billion in revenue across 5 or 6 films now, 7 maybe. So it's super successful. Minions 3 makes total sense. Like, yeah, the guys who do this, it's just, they're laughing Disney all the way to the bank, although Pixar is doing well now. But Disney used to rule animation, and it's been Illumination really raking it in the last few years.
yeah, and Illumination can't get away from the brand either. A Minion is in their like logo, production slate. Every Illumination trailer for any movie that comes out, including Migration, that duck one a while back, that had Minions in it. They opened with it to be like, from the studio that brought you Despicable Me and Minion. Every single piece of marketing material that Illumination puts out pretty much has one of these guys on it. And I do wonder, maybe it's a bit of a problem of oversaturation. God, maybe we've just seen too many Minions. I would assume that's the reason they're giving it 3 years between Despicable Me 4 and Minions 3. Like, they gotta let it cool off a little bit, but between the memes and the merch and just seeing them in marketing material, I mean, it's obvious how well it works. It's a property that transcends language. It transcends country or region, and any kid anywhere can watch Minions and have a good time, right? They don't even speak English, for God's sake. But boy, they just are trying to figure out a good way to, like, I don't know, just keep putting out just enough where you make like $1 billion every time. And I think Despicable Me 4 might be a bit of a huge success, but certainly a mark that, like, we should cool it a second. So I don't know. I think maybe they're making a good move here, and maybe they'll keep working on originals in the meantime. Hopefully, right? That's the dream. But as for the box office, Despicable Me is easily winning the weekend. Longlegs actually doing pretty good. Longlegs having a pretty big opening, I think, for Neon's Itty Bitty Horror Movie, right, Andy?
Yeah, that's really the big story out of the box office. We knew Despicable Me was going to be another big success, but the big story is Longlegs making $22.5 million. The projections were like 8, 9, 10 million tops, and it more than doubled that. Biggest opening for like a rated R movie this year, which is going to get destroyed whenever Deadpool comes out. But still, biggest opening for like an indie, biggest opening for a horror movie in like the last 10 years. Really successful. People have been praising the marketing campaign, which I tried to stay away from as much as possible, but people were like, said it was real effective, really creeped out by it. They got really into it, and it paid off. And it also opened much wider than a lot of these films do. It opened in 2,500 theaters, and a lot of times these smaller indie releases will maybe get like a half that. So that's also contributing to the big number.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's too surprised by Despicable Me. Longlegs, however, big success, and glad to see it, right? Like, I've seen people memeing on Neon, like, wow, look at when Neon actually advertises a film, big things happen. But Longlegs' marketing campaign has been really outstanding. I remember talking about their second trailer on the Trailer Park, and me just being astounded at how different it is and how subversive it is. The first time I saw it in theaters, people in our audience were like looking at each other like, is something wrong with the projector? Why does it keep going off? What's going on? Nope, it's just a weird trailer for a weird movie, and like, clearly it's working. We are having an incredible year in horror and film. Longlegs is no exception. Well, I guess it is the exception, because it's rising above other stuff and saying, hey, if you're really different and you step out and you do something unique, like in the way you present this stuff via tone, not plot, I think people turn out, and like, that's a good thing, right? It reminded me a little bit of like the Skinamarink marketing campaign. Small, thoughtful, considered, tonally strong. I'm glad. Good, right? I hope they advertise more movies like this.
Yeah, it was really effective. It's also been the biggest opening for Nicolas Cage, who of course is also in this movie. So really impressive weekend for the little movie that could.
Yeah, and a producer on it, so glad to see it. But we should jump into it. I think no better place to start. I'm going to be taking the summary on this, so please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is Longlegs. So, it's the 1990s, and FBI agent Lee Harker is a intuitive and gifted new recruit at the agency. But there's a serial killer on the loose, and she's got a partner, and she's got a sergeant who's got a family and his own life, and her being alone, having moved away from home, is little creeped out by the whole situation. But regardless, there's bigger fish to fry. And this serial killer, Longlegs, is leaving notes and leaving messages at victims' houses, families that have been brutally slaughtered in horrific fashion. But evidently, Longlegs is never at the scene of the crime. There's no DNA evidence. There's no hair. There's all the doors are locked. Like, it just seems like he's like a ghost. Somehow these notes are appearing on specific days over specific years, but nobody can track the guy down. So Lee Harker sets to it, right? And her partner are going out and looking for who we hope will be Longlegs. It is a creepy feature out of Neon and Osgood Perkins, who of course formerly directed The Black Coat's Daughter, and Gretel and Hansel, which we covered here on the show. It's had a very subversive marketing campaign. There's got a lot of people very excited, and I'm very excited to talk about it with you. Andy, what did you think of Longlegs?
So I've been looking forward to this all year, all summer, really hyped about it, and I really enjoyed this. There's been a lot of complaints about people thinking it was overhyped and kind of overhyped, and a lot of that's part of the marketing. Like, that's the marketing's job, is to sell you the movie, to hype up the movie. And a lot of people that post, especially on film Twitter, a lot of it's about engagement. And so some people have been said they were disappointed. They said it was not that scary. But that's your own fault. Like, managing expectations is a big part of enjoying cinema. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. The mystery of it all. It's more of a mystery crime thriller. Depending on who you ask, like, there's plenty of horror, but there's a lot of like kind of procedural thing. It's heavy on atmosphere. It's slow paced. It moves slowly. It has a lot going on in the background. It really drags you into this world. I really enjoyed this a lot, and I thought it had some really interesting themes and things that surprisingly also relate to The Black Coat's Daughter, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. So yeah, overall, I totally dug it.
Longlegs is a really fun serial killer movie, right? Serial killer procedural. You've probably seen the reviews. People are comparing it to Seven, to Zodiac. I think those are very apt comparisons, with a streak of religious horror that I think we didn't really expect. I didn't see a lot of that, particularly in the marketing, between like the weird hieroglyph characters and some of this like Numbers of the Beast stuff. I kind of figured it'd be a part of it, but that's a very heavy lean here. And Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage are excellent. They're excellent in it. They are both doing incredible work. Maybe Monroe's best performance to date. Cage is weird, and while some people have said he's too much and he breaks through the character, I disagree. I fell into it. I fell under the spell of Longlegs, and I think, Andy, you're right. Like, it really is. It's suffering from its own success. It's a movie that has marketing that is so big and has so many people saying it's incredibly scary that it leads people in with poor expectations. And that's a bummer. That really is, dude. Because, yeah, I walked into this thinking this movie had no budget. This movie's super small. This movie has no cast. This movie's just going to be this little thing. And, like, I was really pleased with Longlegs. I think it's really neat. And I'm looking forward to kind of talking about it a bit more. Again, no spoilers. We don't do that on this show. And I do want to say, if you want to go in fresh, I think you've heard plenty from us. You should go check it out. But you should also stick around and listen to the review, or maybe come back, because I do want to talk about it more. Andy, I think we should probably talk about what? Tone? I don't want to talk about plot too much. I don't think that's the good place to go. Where do you want to kick this off?
Well, I was going to say plot, but we can go to tone. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, things move slowly. Again, we are doing the serial killer procedural thing, which means like searching through rooms, looking through files, doing research, looking at old newspapers, saying like, this is the kind of thing you would see in Seven or Silence of the Lambs, two films that it's clearly kind of inspired by and invoking. But again, it's just so isolating, because Lee Harker is probably on the spectrum. She has a moment where she visits her partner's family, and it's just super awkward. She can't look anyone in the eye. She doesn't know how to just like make small talk. It's so painful. But her element is looking at, murder files and researching papers. And she's always doing this. She's late at night in the library. She's the only one there with like two lights on, and there's a whole lot of like, is there something going on in the background? I'm not sure. Did I see something? Did I not? There's a whole lot of that going on. She lives by herself, so there's a whole lot of isolation going on. And like I said, the movie really takes its time. The camera moves slowly through rooms, and the score helps it along. So it really just kind of helps to unsettle you, really pull you into the world.
Everything is on a tripod in Longlegs. We are locked down, whether we're doing like a slow pan or a slow dolly or a slow zoom or just a flat shot. We are constantly just staring at the world, almost like an otherworldly presence, right? And as our FBI agents will slowly move into a house where they think Longlegs has been, or maybe get in a car or something, the camera will just slowly push past them and just push out into the darkness. Just let your mind kind of wander. And of course, you might just see something out there. That's one of my favorite things about this movie coming out of it. A number of people that have seen it have talked to me about it since and said, did you notice in this one scene this thing back there? And I'm like, no. Or I'll say, hey, did you see in this one scene that there was this? And people are like, no, I didn't see that. Like it feels like a movie that just kind of has this creepy, overt feeling to it, combined with like a really, really stellar soundtrack. Oz Perkins has put together something really special here. Like, this is a really cool piece of work. I'm really glad we got to take a look at it. As for the plot, I don't want to give too much away, but like we said at the top, Lee Harker is our young FBI agent. She's in from out of town. She's new to the agency. She's pretty sharp. She's pretty good at this serial killer thing, but like Andy said, she cannot have a human connection with anybody. Like she
Yeah.
can't even look people in the eye. Like she's very quiet, very and a very big role for Micah Monroe, like who I have never seen looking like this. Like she doesn't even look like she looks in photos. It's crazy. She's small and mousy, and meanwhile Cage, who you don't get a good look at for a good chunk of the movie, and for good reason, is just this like overtly haunting presence. If you've seen the trailers, if you're looking at the footage we've got on YouTube right now, like he's just odd and just creepy, and every time he's on camera, he's all you want to look at. The very danger we should be avoiding, right, is the very thing you've got to get your eyes on. Like, you, just like the FBI agents, just want to get a peek at like what's going on here, right? Like, you've got to know. And I love that feeling, like the whole film of just kind of chasing this visually, of like chasing the suspect, chasing this idea, this notion of this kind of haunting thing, like chilling. And it makes the whole film feel like uniquely cursed in a way that I think people have been talking about. Like they get in the car to drive home. Like, I just feel eerie. I feel like I need a shower after I watch
Yeah.
Longlegs.
Yeah, the I've seen a lot of that too, where people are saying, "I think I'm cursed from having watched this." I wanted to touch on plot just a little bit as well. So, one interesting thing is that these series of murders that they're chasing have taken place over a very long time. The movie takes place in the '90s, but there are a series of murders going back to the '60s, the '70s, the '80s. So it's a very long time that they've been tracking, trying to find this killer. And one thing that was not obvious in the marketing, but I think is fair to touch on because it happens very early on, is there's a little bit of a supernatural element to what's going on. It's not simply um, just grounded procedural. Think of things, something maybe like the X-Files or even True Detective, where there's something kind of beyond this world also at play amongst, which is an element that I didn't anticipate, that isn't really advertised in the marketing, but I think was done really effective. Some people didn't like it as much as others. For me, it works really well, and it works especially thematically on what Oz Perkins is trying to talk about and convey. Again, that like there's some strong themes about family trauma, generational trauma, the issues kind of passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, those kinds of things.
To start wrapping up my thoughts, I want to talk about production design. This movie is set in the 90s, but it may not be quite the 90s you remember. This small town where things are happening is eerie, and it's always cloudy, and every room they're in is dusty, and every light is a soft white, that kind of like orange glow, like the world of Longlegs is eerie, and our wood paneled walls and our shag carpet interiors do not make us feel any more comfortable. In fact, it's probably worse. And it all makes for really intense backdrop, whether we've got Lee Harker like in the FBI office laying out photos on the ground of like horrific murder scenes, right? Like the kind of stuff that like honestly is only ever best cooked up in the world of film. Being able to watch this and lean back and go, thank God those aren't all real is nice, because they sure look real. They sure do. They're uniquely chilling. Or if she's at the library and it's 1 a.m. and she's like looking through old newsreels, right? She looks over her shoulder and feels like she hears something between the stacks. Going out to an old dusty barn with big cobwebs, and it just looks like something might blow in the door. Like just a feeling of presence over this movie. Like it's so fascinating. And I can't point to any one thing that makes that work, but it seems like Oz Perkins has dialed it in, and I'm looking forward to what he produces next, because this is something really unique. And I say that having watched a lot of movies for this damn show.
Yes, and that's one thing I can say from The Blackcoat's Daughter, which that came out in 2015 and it's a smaller film. It's probably has a much smaller budget, and there's huge amounts of growth between that movie and this one. And yes, he's done a film in between and some other projects, so it's not like he's just jumped and that was 9 years ago. But it is refreshing to see a director grow from film to film, because then that makes you excited for what is coming next.
One more quick question before final thoughts, Andy. I did want to ask, and this is silly. I probably should have just asked this before the show, but people are listening. Why not? We'll just get it out here. Do you think he's better served going by Osgood Perkins or Oz Perkins? Because IMDb has him formerly listed as Oz Perkins through his bit of an acting career. He was in Legally Blonde and actually was in Nope as the director of that first commercial that OJ is trying to shoot with the horse. Yeah. But now in this film, he's labeling himself as Osgood Perkins, and that seems to be his kind of directorial streak. We've got him as Osgood in the show notes. But I don't know. What do you say? What's tomato?
The poster says Osgood Perkins, so that's what I would.
GG Osgood Perkins. Andy, would you recommend Longlegs?
Yeah, I absolutely would, especially for you horror fans who have been anticipating it in this. It's moody, it's atmospheric. It's only 100 minutes. It's not super long. It's very efficient. Great performances from Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage. I really like this. I want to see it again. I think there's a lot to pick up on second viewing. I think it's important to temper your expectations and not get caught up in hype and overhype. Everyone who's been disappointed has been disappointed because they went in with unrealistic expectations, which is your own fault. So go in with realistic expectations, and I promise you'll have a good time. I can't wait to see this a second time. I almost went the very next day, but I thought, no, let it sit and simmer a little bit, and then I'll revisit it in a week or so.
While it may not be the scariest movie of all time, Longlegs is eerie, man. It's really cool. Please go see it in the theater. It rocks. I think it's weird. Don't watch it when it comes to a small screen, obviously you should check it out there, but like best experience, big screen, big sound. It is big presentation. It is big vibes. It is totally worth 90 minutes. It's fast. God, it's fast. It's a fast movie. It's a quick burn. Go check out Longlegs. You won't be disappointed, at least not in our opinion. And with that, we should move on to our next segment. Andy, what do we call this?
It's time for the trailer park. So we got a slew of new trailers just dropped, some exciting stuff. Our first one is called The Substance. This was a horror movie out of Cannes, I believe, that caught a lot of buzz. It won, I think, the prize for best screenplay. It stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. And we don't really know much about it from this first trailer. There's just lots of flashes. It's lots of vibes. And it's a story about someone, I think Demi Moore's character, trying to reclaim youth. There's some miracle drug that will make you look young again. We see Margaret Qualley as this kind of model person, the perfect young look. And from what I've heard is that it's a body horror thing where, someone takes whatever medicine to look young, and they're with horrific consequences. We don't get much from the trailer, but it looks like I said, I've just heard great things about it. There's lots of vibes. It's got a cool poster. This comes out in the fall sometime, September 20th. So we'll see what that's all about, but I'm looking forward to this a lot.
Yeah, very excited for The Substance. It looks weird. It looks Cronenbergian almost, right? It reminds me of like Titan that we covered on the show. Like weird, freaky. Margaret Qualley's on the come up. I've seen few poor performances. I've seen more good performances from her than bad performances for sure. Demi Moore's a lot of fun. I don't know, man. Substance might be rad. And the trailer has this little green bottle that says Activator on it, which I think is rad. Like very, very excited for whatever weirdness The Substance is going to throw at us. What's next?
So we also got this was a treat before Longlegs, was the full trailer for Anora, which we have talked about a little bit. This was the Palme d'Or winner at the Cannes Film Festival. Huge amounts of buzz. People are at Oscar talk already. This is Sean Baker's new film, who previously did The Florida Project and Red Rocket, and stars Mikey Madison, who you may have seen in a little movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and also Scream 5. Mikey Madison is a stripper / sex worker who gets involved with a Russian playboy who may or may not work for the Russian mob. They have a whirlwind romance and decide to get married. That causes all sorts of problems for this Russian playboy mob guy, but she's in. I mean, because she's in for the love and the money, and she's trying to get out of this situation alive. I've heard it's stressful. I heard it's like uncut gems for. I don't want to say the sex worker industry, but for someone in the kind of that area of Vice. Heard great things. A lot of hype behind this. This is coming out in October.
Yes, very excited for Anora. We've been looking forward to Sean Baker's next film for a while since it won the Palme d'Or. Cannes. Gotta get used to saying Cannes. I keep saying Cannes, and it's not that complicated. It's just Cannes. We've been looking forward to it. Seeing the trailer in front of Longlegs was a treat. Very excited to see it. People are saying transformative performance from Mikey Madison. One thing I did mention to Andy, boy, they really downplay the whole Palme d'Or in front of this trailer, because I feel like the general audience we watched Longlegs with had no idea what any of that means. They're like, oh yeah, it just looks like a fine movie. And it's like, I wish there was a better way to lift that up, like, hey, this is a really big deal. Like, this particular piece of art has stood out over the other pieces of art this year. This one's a good one. You should go check it out. Instead, it's just like a slate in the front, boom, we're on our way, a humble opening. And I wouldn't expect any less from Sean Baker, though I would expect this to make a splash whenever it lands. When is this coming out? October 18th. October. Rock on.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah. And well, just real quick. I mean, the Palme d'Or winner at Cannes is probably the biggest prize you can win outside of winning an Oscar. And for instance, last year's Palme d'Or winner was Anatomy of a Fall, so which ended up being a huge movie, a big fall release, an Oscar contender as well. So I think this will be in that same line.
Yeah. One more movie to talk about in the trailer park here. Captain America Brave New World. Yeah, that new Captain America movie that Marvel's been working out. It's finally here and worked well. The trailer's here and we're excited to talk about it. Sam Wilson, who's officially taken up the mantle of Captain America, finds himself in the middle of an international incident involving Captain Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who is now the president and notably played by Harrison Ford. It's funnily explained in the trailer that he's not played by William Hurt anymore because he had to get his mustache shaved for the election. Simple, easy, throwaway. I like it. And of course, we get lots of Anthony Mackie dressed up in the colors, in the suit, got the shield. Things are happening. Buildings are blowing up. Lots of CGI, and maybe a brief look at that Red Hulk. Looks kind of neat. I don't know, right? Andy, what do you think?
I thought that this was a lot better than I was anticipating, because this movie's kind of been plagued. It had a lot of production issues. It's had a lot of reshoots. It's been pushed back, and we've had a hard time getting back to kind of core Marvel movies. I thought this looked pretty good. It's kind of a retread of a similar storyline where you have the president wanting Captain America to be a military asset to be, used at will. At some point, we see someone try to this is kind of going to sound a little insensitive, try to shoot the president, played by Harrison Ford, who is actually a one Isaiah Bradley, who was in the Captain America Winter Soldier show as someone who also had taken the super soldier serum way back in World War II. So we see him show up in this briefly. We see glimpses of another flying superhero in Falcon gear. So there's two of them. We see Giancarlo Esposito looking cool, holding guns, but we don't know who his character is. So the trailer is big on vibes, and it's like, oh, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's someone you don't know but looks cool. And of course, it ends with fabulous big red Hulk catching the Captain America shield, throwing it down, and that's kind of the big reveal, which we already knew that Red Hulk was going to be in this. Red Hulk played by Harrison Ford's character Thunderbolt Ross. So I don't know if they actually got Ford in like the the big Thanos style CGI suit, but Red Hulk is another selling point. So this looked a lot better than I thought. I'm definitely gonna see it. I think it'll be fine.
I watched a bit of that show Shrinking on Apple TV, and Harrison Ford is in that. And let me tell you, he's sitting in like 80% of his scenes. I can confirm confidently here on Off Script, he did not suit up like Thanos to play Red Hulk. There's no way. They absolutely got somebody else to do it. But I'm sure they got his facial capture or something, right? Like he could do that in a chair. He's getting old. He's getting old. And hey, God love him. He's getting the bag. Captain America's coming out February 14th, early next year. We will cover it on the show, rest assured. So if you want to hear that and other reviews, just subscribe to Off Script, whenever convenient. Now would be great, or maybe when you're done listening, whatever, right after you throw us a like and subscribe or comment, or, social media stuff. Anyway, we got to get to other movies. We got to talk about other more important movies, things we've actually seen, not trailers, but films, features. And I'm excited to talk about this one because it's a classic, and I'd never seen it before this week, so I'm excited to get into it. Andy's going to be taking the summary on it. Andy, please take it away.
Twister. So Zach and I got together to look way back to 1996's disaster feature Twister, which was a big hit at the time. I actually saw this in theater, and I remember at the time there was so much hype for this movie. It was up there with this is when things like The Rock and Independence Day, Jurassic Park, like this era of exciting disaster films. And so we meet Helen Hunt, plays Dr. Joe Harding, who's part of this group of storm chasers who are trying to collect data, trying to create early warning systems. And they're a ragtag group. They got everything they have is like DIY. They have all these kind of old equipment and trucks. And then they're all crazy about storms. Philip Seymour Hoffman's in there with some classic lines, super over the top. Bill Paxton is also the lead, and he's someone who was a storm chaser, but he's like, calm down. He's gonna get a job as a regular boring weatherman. And so while they're out chasing these storms, he's trying to get Helen Hunt's character to sign his divorce papers so they can be finalized and move on, and he can get married to the wonderful Melissa. So it's this wonderful Hollywood plot where of course, like they rekindle their flame. He remembers what he really liked, because he's like this mythical storm chaser that he's like the tornado whisperer. There's a great scene where he goes outside, like sniffs the wind, grabs the dirt, feels how wet it is, and drops it in the wind. Meanwhile, we also have Carrie Elwes is like the big bad corporate sleaze who are also chasing tornadoes, and they have these sleek black vans and black SUVs, and they're clearly better funded, have higher tech, and but they don't have the instincts that the kind of DIY guys do. And so it's a big disaster film. They're trying to get in front of these tornadoes, drop a gadget in front of it so they can get more readings, but then they got to get out, so they got to put themselves in harm's way, get out, and they got to do this a couple of times because, of course, it doesn't work the first time. A lot of great practical filmmaking, also the start of some digital shots as well. This had great effects at the time. Most of them stand up, some of them don't quite. But that's our setup. That's our movie. Zach, what'd you think?
So first off, initial impressions. Film came out in 96. I'm watching it in 2024. I can say confidently Twister holds up and is a lot of fun. And for people who think that maybe it's like lacking in plot structure or antagonist, I think you're nuts, dude. Like, I think this movie would have been fun to watch in the theater. I'm bummed I didn't get to see it when Andy did. I totally get why it's got a bit of a cult kind of classic status. Like, I don't see people putting it in their top 10 list, but Twister is really unique. And I think what's funny is, as unique as it is from other features, it also has a stunning amount in common with Jurassic Park. And I'm sure people have compared it in the past, right? It's easy, but there's more to, just kind of seeming like Jurassic Park that meets the eye. One, we're fighting big forces of nature. Jurassic Park fights dinosaurs. We're fighting storms. Two, we don't really have a big antagonist, right? The antagonist is kind of the force of nature. There's no like one real person or like particular entity that is driving the problem or has specific malice towards any of our one characters. Dinosaurs don't know who they're eating. The Twister doesn't care what it's eating. It's written by Michael Crichton and Anne-Marie Martin, who both wrote Jurassic Park. It's produced by Amblin Entertainment. They did that in 93, Steven Spielberg's shop. They did Twister in 96. It's even produced by Kathleen Kennedy. Both films, Jurassic Park and this were, and notably Kathleen Kennedy has gone on to do Star Wars, right? She heads up that whole thing for Disney. A lot of great talent behind this, not just in the writing and production. Jan de Bont, the director, formerly directed Speed. After this movie, he did Speed 2 Cruise Control. He did like one movie in 99 and he never did anything else. He's just been a cinematographer. Wow. He has not done any more directing. And from what I hear, Twister was a bear to shoot. Incredible cast watching Twister. I remember Andy telling me it's like a who's who. There's tons of great people in this movie. Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, Cary Elwes, Jamie Gertz, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Alan Ruck. Like, it just keeps going. Todd Field, director of Tar, is in this movie. Like, it's nuts. and is in the whole film. Like, he keeps showing up. It's crazy. Like, lots of little character actors and bit parts. Oh, that guy saw in Law and Order. Not to mention a lot of fun sequences with big effects that are blended pretty good for audiences. Like, as somebody who watches a lot of movies and enjoys seeing how movies are made, Twister is as much fun to kind of pick apart, I think, as it is to enjoy the first time through. So I'm excited we're talking about it. And I'm glad I watched it before Twisters next week. Where do you want to jump into the larger conversation?
Man, there's so many places, but I think just kind of the tone of it's classic filmmaking, up there with like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, Jurassic Park is what we said. And it's the kind of thing where like everything is made crystal clear for the audience. Like, the bad guys are all in black and they're jerks, and the good guys are ragtag kind of outsiders. They're so excited about, like, they sell being tornado chasers so well. It gets a little sciencey, but it never confuses you. They constantly remind you, hey, we got to get this gadget in front of the tornado. Got to get the gadget in front of the tornado. It didn't work. We got to try it again. And so you know what's going on. There's all these flashes to like technology. You see screens, science, radar, radios, and it's like you don't really understand any of it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you just know, oh, technology, they're reading this, and it's sold so well, and you're just with it the whole time. We have good dialogue, we have fun characters. Poor Jamie Gertz, who plays Melissa, who's like the new wife, who's like the uptight woman from the city, who's wearing a white suit out to the country, who's kind of unfairly maligned in this movie. She didn't do anything wrong. She's just gets put in this suicide mission. There's this great aunt character that they all stop by. Oh, let's go over to Aunt May's for steak and eggs, and we all have a family dinner. And then she comes up later in the film, and the disaster stuff works so well. That's what it really is. It's like a building coming down or an earthquake, that kind of movie where there's just disaster, destruction coming in ways that we hadn't seen up to that point. It's so effective filmmaking.
Yeah, groundbreaking special effects in Twister, not only in like the physical presentation and the blending of like shots in Oklahoma with like a sky in the background, but it's just in CGI all over. Like, placing what looks like a very real tornado behind our audiences is a real challenge in 96, behind our cast, in 96. And they do it pretty good. You see the seams now, I think, more than you probably did then. But as somebody who watched a lot of movies, I was kind of looking for them, admittedly. And while not everything holds up, there's a particular shot just after the opening scene where young Joe is like pulled into the storm cellar with their father and mother in Oklahoma, and they're like, "Get the door! Oh, the Twister's coming!" It's great. It's great. It's a lot of fun. There's like a Doppler radar satellite out above Earth, and it looks god awful, but it takes you right back to '96. You know what I mean? Like, it's the best we could do. And from there, Andy's right. It's a whole lot of science stuff on screens. You don't need to know about that junk. They're going to throw some terms at you like it's a sidewinder and it's a barn burner, but that's all flavor text. Like, what matters is Bill and Joe's relationship with the tornadoes, and then secondly, their relationship with each other, and then thirdly, Bill's relationship with Melissa, which is hilariously wrote in the background. Poor Jamie Gertz gets pulled through this whole movie. She does nothing wrong. Really, like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt arguably do more wrong than she does. They're putting people in danger. They're putting their lives in danger. They're not listening to what people are telling them to do because they've got tornado intuition. They can just feel when the thing is going to turn left, or they can look at the scoop on top of the crest and know that it's going to turn right into the bad guys. And that all makes for like a really fun, lightweight script, I think, that gets you to enjoy the film with our experts and put our cast in danger while also having enough agency to know what to do next, especially regarding their Dorothy experiment, right? Because that's the whole thing. They've got these pods named Dorothy that are going to have these little like sensors fly up into the tornado and give them tornado data and help them detect tornadoes in the future just a few minutes before they could previous. And that'll give them the ability to save lives all over the world. They really make an effort to point out that that's important. Which is, you know, appreciated. It's kind of the primary conflict, I suppose, in the movie, right? And we've got a big cast of goofy goofballs to run around with them, most of which I'm surprised make it to the end of the movie. I really figured
Right.
with like a crew of 10 dudes that some of them were going to get iced by a tornado, but no, it's a family feature first, PG-13.
Yeah, it's an incredible cast, and yeah, you would think that they'd be picked off one by one, or that, you know, only half are going to survive, but pretty much everyone makes it through. I think Aunt May has the worst injury with like a bump on the head. I think one of the things that this movie did so well, especially at the time, was blend practical and digital effects. You would have, of course, the big tornado effects done by computer, but then you had everything else: the wind, the rain, the debris. There's great scenes where like boards are being pulled out of like nails being pulled out of the wood because the wind is just so strong, and they do it all practical. I'm sure they had to build contraptions to do it all. There's a part they all have to hide away in this garage, and the car gets thrown through the window, and it's again, they take a lot of thriller events from Jurassic Park and kind of recreate them here. Of course, the famous like T-Rex stomp where you see the glass, the water shaking. Instead, that we have these wind chimes that slowly start rotating, slowly start picking up, and they'll get faster and faster. And they do that gag several times in the movie, so it keeps it a lot of fun. But I think the blend of practical and digital effects is part of what made this work so well.
Yeah, like this is Amblin in their prime, right? This is when they had like just come off Jurassic Park. They just finished, they'd wrapped Back to the Future about a decade prior. Like this is when Steven Spielberg is hitting his high water marks. And Jan de Bont is hot off the set of Speed, and he's got Michael Crichton in the writer's room, and he's got Kathleen Kennedy in production. Like we can do anything. So they go out to Oklahoma and they start filming this thing where they discover there's a lot of actual tornadoes in Oklahoma where they shot this movie. Apparently that was a big part of trying to get the production together, was dodging legitimate tornadoes. And hey guys, we got to wrap this shoot up. We got to get inside. Those clouds aren't kidding around. Additionally, like throwing like ice chunks and hail and debris on our actors is brutal. And about halfway through this movie, I leaned over on the couch and said, Andy, like what are they throwing on these guys? That looks really real. That looks like it really hurts. And reportedly it does. There's a lot of making of featurettes available on YouTube since the 4K for Twister just came out. You can take a look at it. Like it seems like it was a miserable shoot. It seems like it was rough, and it's a road movie. Like in its best moments, it reminds me of like an old Mad Max feature. We're on the road pretty much the whole time. I don't know how these people get paid. Andy says it's through grants. I couldn't figure out how any of them have real jobs, but that doesn't matter because they're not out here for capitalism. All right. They're here to chase tornadoes. That is what we're doing. We're going to the suck zone. All right. We're going to do it together. And Twister is like a uniquely invite night into the tent sort of feature. We get the safety and comfort of our American theater. We get to hang out and eat our popcorn while our cast members are thrown about the place by insane forces of nature that they themselves can only barely comprehend. It is a spectacle sort of feature, and is as much fun from our very first opening scene to when we first see tornadoes and these like godlike ahs are like coming out of the soundtrack, or even the explosive ending where they're like barely keeping it together. Like, it's a lot of fun, and it just keeps moving. I was something I was really impressed with. Like, boy, like this movie just keeps going for an hour 53. It almost feels like it's shorter.
Yeah, it just moves constantly, and you're having so much fun with like the action, the characters, the drama, the dialogue, that it just, again, yeah, it never feels slow. Yeah, I think they get paid by grants. Not real certain. They're all listed as doctor this and doctor that. So that seems to be what they're doing. But yeah, it's so much fun. And again, we have our big drama with the tornadoes. We have our other antagonist and Carrie Elwes's character doing this really like putting on this thick Southern drawl that he's struggling. Like it's brutal. So kind of overdone, but it's real funny. Most people probably won't notice. And there's also Helen Hunt's character has had a family tragedy kind of at the beginning of the movie, and this is haunting her throughout the whole thing. That there's parts where people recognize, well, what's the biggest tornado you've seen, and everyone goes silent because they're like, well, none of us have seen one that big, but someone here who lost a close family member has it. It's just, it takes it so seriously, and it's sold so well. And yeah, and there's great moments that if you watch the original trailer, there's a moment where you Philip Seymour Hoffman, he's running, he's like, we gotta go, it's coming, and Bill Paxton, serious as day, says, no, it's already here. Like, oh, it's beautiful filmmaking. Like,
yeah. God, there's also this incredible scene right in the middle of like a drive-in theater getting rocked by a tornado, and they're running The Shining.
Classic.
It's so great. Yeah, it's the shot when Jack's knocking the door down, Wendy's screaming on the other side of it, and the tornado just picks up the whole damn screen and takes it away. Like, such a good time. Delightfully fun. Like a great summer blockbuster. Just to kind of curb this for next week and kind of wrap up our thoughts, Andy, what in here do you, I guess, hope or expect to see in Twisters? Where do you think Twisters can improve on what's here? Because Twisters, as far as I can tell from the trailer, seems to be gender swapping it, right? Seems like our lead, Daisy Edgar Jones, right? She's kind of the corporate stooge, and Glenn Powell's our male maverick. What do you think?
I think it's got to capture the vibes, which is largely what makes Twister so good. It's a really fun movie with all the characters. You have kind of these big archetypes, which are a lot of fun. It's not too complicated. I think, if anything, the big improvement will be special effects. You'll be able to make everything look much more real and authentic. But again, you have to blend the practical with the digital. So I think that'll be the challenge, is making sure that part, that excitement is still there. And if you have fun characters, and I mean, Glenn Powell's just killing it these days. If you have good characters and good chemistry, I think it's going to be a hit.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching Twisters. I'm glad we watched this one. I'm very pleased to say it holds up good. I like it. I've been surprised, like, looking for people with hot takes on Twister since the new one's coming out, and people saying that this one's not a good time or is poor. Like, I don't know, man. I think it's aged well. There was probably a decade ago, I probably would have said, I don't know, it's a little clunky, but like it's like fine wine. It's vintage, right? Vintage 96 in Twister. So with that, Andy, would you recommend Twister?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a classic of the 90s, of the disaster genre, of Amblin Entertainment. It's so much fun from start to finish. You got a good emotional center. You have these kind of wild and crazy storm chasers. You got this romance going on in the background, a romance with nature as well. Big special effects, a lot of fun. It flies by. Highly recommend, especially before seeing this new one.
Yeah, I think Twister rocks, dude. Aged great. I mean that. Like, even if you're like spooked about bad weather, I know a couple people in my life are, I'd say you could still go back and revisit it because it's aged just enough where, of course, you know it's not legit, but you can enjoy it in that way. Like, it's got a newfound something to it that I think it didn't have then, combined with stellar cast, fun writing, great production. Twister, man, It's a good time. It's a good time at the movies. Would recommend. I'd love to catch it on a big screen sometime. It's a shame I haven't seen any retro screenings since Twister's coming out. Maybe someday. But with that, we got to move on. We got one more film to talk about. Normally it's 2 on the show. This week it's 3, and this is a mini review of, Oz Perkins' last feature. Well, it's 2015 feature, I guess, that Andy saw and I did not, so I will get out of his way. Andy, please, whenever you're ready, take it away.
The Black Coat's Daughter. So this is Oz Perkins. I think it was directorial debut in 2015, 2 films ago, and this was highly recommended to me to watch after seeing Longlegs. I heard from multiple people say if you like Longlegs, go back and watch his first feature, and they're kind of related in a sense. You got to. So I didn't, and I enjoyed it so much. I ended up watching it a second time, kind of skimming through parts because there's a lot that I felt like I missed or kind of things that I would catch more the second time around. And it's a quick watch. It's a quick 90 minutes. But let me get into the plot. So this, funny enough, has the same plot as The Holdovers, where 2 girls get kind of caught at their Catholic boarding school over a winter break. Very similar to The Holdovers. In this case, our two main characters here are Kat, played by Kiernan Shipka, who's also makes a brief appearance in Longlegs, and Rose, played by Lucy Boynton, who we saw in Sing Street a while ago. So these 2 girls their parents are supposed to come pick them up on Friday for a spring break, and this must be somewhere in the north because there's still a lot of snow on the ground for how late in the spring it is. The parents aren't coming. The headmaster's annoyed. He's like, "What do I do with these 2 girls? There's not anyone really here." There are a couple, like the nurse and the lunch lady, do live on campus, so they're going to kind of look after them. But Lucy Boynton's Rose is told to, like, can you look after the freshman? She's the older, much more mature girl, and she, can you look after the freshman, please? And she's like, I don't really want to. And meanwhile, there is something kind of not right at the school. There is some sort of evil within that the girls have to kind of tackle. And then there is another element of this that Emma Roberts is also in this, who plays Joan, who plays a character kind of in the future. And that's one of the things that the movie does. It jumps around with the timeline quite a bit, but there's a lot similar in theme to Longlegs, themes of kind of isolation, loneliness, kind of there's some supernatural things going on. But I really enjoyed this. Like I said, I gave it a second watch.
So one of the things I wanted to ask about, I haven't seen the film. For those tuning in, Andy has, so I'm gonna play question for the second. First, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm gonna ask you questions about the movie, Andy, and you're gonna tell me what you thought. That's what we're gonna interview. You got it. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes. One of the things I wanted to ask about was tone in a film like Longlegs versus this. Osgood Perkins shoots everything on a tripod in Longlegs. We are locked down. If I recall correctly, Gretel and Hansel's the same tone. Smart lighting, out of focus backgrounds, just like there just might be something back there, but you're not quite sure. Great shot composition. Is that something you see developing here? Does he feel like he's got it dialed in? Like, does it feel as creepy, as eerie as something like Longlegs does?
In a way, it does. It's definitely it's a smaller film. It's definitely on a smaller budget. There's not a lot of people actually, and that's part of probably how they saved on money, is that there's the school is empty largely except for like a handful of people, but it's similar in that, yes, it's largely shot on tripod. Again, it's about eerie tone. It's slow paced. It takes its time. It's very bleak because it's like this gross gray winter. There's like a foot of snow on the ground. There's a lot of like looking out bright windows through dark hallways. Similar thing that the payphone has a role in this movie, similar to we get some of that in Longlegs as well. But it's slow in pace. It is a lot of people talking in rooms, but it's some important things that are happening. Again, it's very eerie, very atmospheric.
Yeah, it's written by Osgood Perkins as well as directing, just like Longlegs, which is nice to see. But I did want to ask, because he didn't write Gretel and Hansel, he just directed that. As far as kind of structure of this goes, is it all sequential? Does it have some forward and back? Is that something you should find out as you watch the film? Like, I guess, is it something that feels uniquely like there's a through line through it? What am I getting at here?
So there's definitely a lot of jumping back and forth. We get our kind of present. We get our story of the two girls at the school, kind of not locked in there, but isolated. And we have things that happen to Kat, things that happen to Rose, and then we have a time skip of about 10 years, and we have a character named Joan, and something that happens to her, and we get the feeling that something happened at the school. We're not real sure what, but between this 10-year period, and it all kind of converges by the end to where all is revealed. But we're slowly piecing together a mystery of like something's not quite right here. Something happened. Something went down. Not everyone survived it. What is it, and what is it about? So it's that kind of way. It jumps back and forth quite a bit. I was a little confused a couple of times where we were in the timeline, but and much more clear on rewatch.
The original working title for Blackcoat's Daughter was February, which I don't know what that means, but I would assume you, having seen it, might have an idea. But I think a title like Blackcoat's Daughter kind of suffers because it doesn't have a lot of identity. It reminds me of like The Black Phone, right? Like a movie that did well in theaters, but like on its face, even when I say it, I think it takes people a second to be like, what is that? Oh, right, that one horror movie, right? Like Blackcoat's Daughter is just a little like, I don't know. It's just, there it is. That's the title. That's our movie, right? As far as marketing for this film goes, it definitely didn't have any of the kind of viral status that Longlegs has had. It hasn't had any of these kind of subversive trailers. But like when people, I don't know, if they wanted to go look at a trailer or maybe go find this on a streaming service, hopefully you can tell us which one it is. I think it's on Prime, but I don't actually know. I don't know. Like, is that something they should kind of go looking for, or do you think people should just kind of go in fresh, like listen to us talk about it, then go watch the film? Like, are you afraid of giving things away?
You can kind of do either or. I went back and watched the trailer after I'd seen it, and I didn't think that it kind of spoiled or gave too much away. Like I said, it's a large on vibes and this isolation. It has, like I said, similar thematically in a lot of ways to Longlegs, which I'm not going to get into because that's spoiler territory. But again, I was so captivated by it. I was like, I have to go back and look at a few scenes over again because I think there's clues to things that happen and things that are going to. There's a lot of foreshadowing, but you may not pick it up quite at first. And the reason it's called February is that's when the this break is happening, is in February. It's the week after Valentine's Day, so that's probably where that original title comes from. And as far as the Blackcoat's Daughter, that is a song. It's like a folk song, and that plays kind of with the end credits. But I'm not real sure how it relates to the rest of the movie. Maybe it just sounded cooler, honestly.
Two more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. And the last one is whether or not you'd recommend it. So that one's a layup. But this one might be a little bit more complicated. Dr. Sleep and oh God, he directed Dr. Sleep. He's doing that new Exorcist movie. Director Mike Flanagan, horror director, has said that The Blackcoat's Daughter, at least in an interview with I forget who, I'll get that in a minute, said that this is his favorite horror film of all time. Big claim. I know, big claim from a director who's done a lot. I'm getting that from IMDb trivia. Any thoughts on that? Why? What do you think he sees in this that he thinks is particularly exceptional? What is this movie doing that would break it out far and away for somebody like that?
Yeah, to steal a line from Maxine in the X trilogy, it's a small film with big ideas. This is part of where this term elevated horror has come from. Kind of applies to this, where yes, there's something scary, there's something evil going on. There's some event that happened that kind of affects everyone's, but it's a metaphor for other things. The way something like the Babadook is a metaphor for depression or anxiety or other kinds of thing. Like it's more than just like the scares or the evil to be defeated. It's very layered. There's and some things that are subtle is this is a little bit of, there's some sapphic undertones where Kat definitely has a crush on not Lucy, Rose. Like there's a little bit of a romance there. The two women, the nurse and the other female caretaker, they live together in that kind of, they were just roommates kind of thing. So there's a little bit of a coming of age story, and again, this younger girl looking up to this older girl. Oh, and Rose is also dealing with a possible pregnancy scare. She's someone that, she goes out, she's got a boyfriend in town that comes picks her up, and like she thinks she might be pregnant. She smokes. She's like, she's a rebellious teen, and Kiernan Shipka's character is anything but. And so there's some undertones of that going on. It's very strong thematically, and I could see why that might be someone's favorite, because it's a little unpolished. It needs a bigger budget, needs a little bit more discipline, maybe in the timeline jumping around. But like the ideas are so big, I could see why this might be someone's favorite scary movie.
Andy, would you recommend The Blackcoat's Daughter?
Absolutely. Especially if you've seen Longlegs, definitely check this out. You can see a lot of the inspiration for things we would see in Longlegs, but it's slower pace. It's atmospheric. It's kind of this creeping evil. Like, what is going on in this school? Who's responsible? Who knows what? Who's going to survive this? And we have this big time jump, and it's like, how did we get here? What happened in between, and where are we going with this kind of older character played by Emma Roberts? So I would definitely highly recommend for horror fans, for sure.
I love it. I'm gonna have to check it out. A surprise Osgood Perkins double feature this week on Off Script, episode 260, I might add, alongside 1996's Twister, which I'm glad I watched, man. I love watching Bill Paxton cut it up. God, gone too soon, man. Bill Paxton rocks, and I'm excited to go check out Blackcoats whenever I can. Andy, what are we watching next week?
We're watching Twisters, the spiritual sequel to 1996's Twister. This one, of course, stars Glenn Powell, Daisy Edgar Jones, Anthony Ramos. Plot looks similar. It's going to be another disaster fun movie. Glenn Powell's got these great lines. His name's Tyler Owen. He's like, you don't face your fears, you ride them. Like, he's going to ride this tornado. So he's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're going to be looking to look at something else on streaming, maybe The Beekeeper, maybe something else. Some FYI releases. Horizon An American Saga Part 1 is already available to rent on video on demand for a steep $20. If you are interested in that, it is out now. We're probably going to skip it. Maybe wait till it's on a free streaming or on Max or something like that. And of course, Deadpool and Wolverine will be coming up July 26th.
I would love to check out Horizon Part 1. I'm not spending $20 on it. There's no shot I spend that money. When it comes to a streamer, I'll check it out. I'd love to watch it for the show. Yeah, it's 3 hours, but I can watch it at home. I can watch it in chunks. I can do my laundry in the middle of it. I got time. As for Twisters, radically excited, especially after watching Twister. Let me tell you, you don't face your fears, you ride them. That line goes so hard, I assumed it was in the first film. I figured for sure that was like Bill Paxton's catchphrase or something. Nope. Never once, just for Twisters. Can't wait. Boy, it's going to be a good time. If you want to catch that show next week, if you want to keep up with what we're doing, listen to our previous episodes, just get in the mix with us. Just hop in the Off-Script mix. Best way to do it is subscribe to Off-Script Film Review on any service available. We're, of course, in audio on Spotify and Google Play and iHeartMedia, Amazon Podcasts. I think we're over there. You might even listen to us over there right now. If you are, hit that subscribe button. Rate and review if you can. Helps us out a ton like you wouldn't believe. If you are seeing the video of this, you're either on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, one of those usual social media places. You can follow us there. You can like, comment, subscribe. And of course, we're on YouTube. Big things happening on the YouTube channel. Always excited to plug the YouTube channel. Come check us out over there. We'll be back next week. And, the website, of course. You can check out everything else we've got going on, additional interviews, press stuff at offscriptfilmreview.com. And you can mail us correspondence directly. Let us know what you think about the movies we're watching or the show we're creating at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Boy, that's episode 260. From all of us at Offscript, the home of Bold Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.